Hello, welcome back to Read the World. It's me, Emma, again, back with more harebrained schemes. A project that I started working on before I even made this channel was to start collecting the titles of an iconic classic novel from every country in the world and to start reading them. I think that this endeavor will perhaps take my entire life. There's a lot of countries in the world, but I have this cute little world map that I'm filling in with the covers of all of these books. Insert that one here. And I'm really excited to see how satisfying it is when all of those countries are all filled out with all of the book covers, you know, when I'm like 80 years old. Right now, I am starting on filling in Central America a little more with 3 classic novels from that region of the world. First book that I have is Pedro Paramo by Juan Rulfo, translated by Margaret Sayers Payden. It has a foreword by Susan Sontag, which is so interesting, like, of all people. This one was published in 1955, translated in 1994. That's kind of late. Okay. Everywhere that I looked on the internet, all I saw was that this is the classic novel, like the Great Mexican Novel. I've been trying to ask people from other countries, like, what is the iconic novel from your country? And I really like putting that on my list. But I've also done some preliminary research in some countries, and this is what I saw over and over and over again. This is the iconic novel. I've also heard it's very weird, which I'm really excited about. That cover is interesting. Very cool, very cool. So that's what I'm reading for Mexico. And then I'm reading for Belize, Beka Lamb by Z. Edgel. This was pretty much the only book I could find for Belize. Not just the most iconic, the most classic book from Belize, but pretty much the only novel you can find in English out of Belize. This one was first published in 1982, and there's no translator listed, so I assume it was written in English. I know that Z. Edgel grew up both in Jamaica and Belize, and so I'm excited for a female writer and to see what this one is all about. I know almost nothing. It's about a girl named Beka Lamb. It provides a compelling portrait of ordinary life in Belize. Okay. And then finally, the last one I'm reading for now, I do intend to try and get the entire world, is The President by Miguel Angel Asturias. Oh, look, it's that big interlibrary loan sticker, so we can't see the whole beautiful cover. This one was directly recommended to me by a Guatemalan guy that I met at work. There's this sweet man who was so proud of the fact that Miguel Angel Asturias won a Nobel Prize for Literature. This one was originally published in 1946, translated in 1963, and then it was translated by Francis Partridge. That one should be interesting. It looks like it's a government satire. It's the story of a ruthless dictator and his schemes to dispose of a political adversary in an unnamed Latin American country. How timely. Interesting. So I'll get started on those ones and let you know how it's going. I am halfway through Pedro Paramo. Already I'm considering rereading it as soon as I finish it, because there is just so much going on, and yet it's this length. It's like 120 pages, and it's the kind of book, listen, the vibe is, I don't know what's going on. I don't know if any of the characters are alive. I don't know if any of the characters are dead. I don't know if any of the characters exist. I don't know what has happened and what has not happened. I don't know what I've read about that is going to happen or has already happened or is currently happening. And that's all the point of the story. It's about a man who goes to a town to seek his father that he never met because his mother told him to go find his father right before she died. And then he finds that the town is just populated by ghosts, but he keeps not really realizing that until he's already talked to a bunch of people and realizes that they're all ghosts. And then the narrative will slide back and forth between his perspective and his father's perspective, and past and present, and both his perspective in the present and his father's perspective in the present, I think sometimes, and his perspective in the past and his father's perspective in the past, and it will switch without really warning, which is a very interesting experience. It's super confusing, but I do really like it. It's so unique. I think it is so fascinating that this is apparently one of the greatest influences of Gabriel Garcia Marquez, who I adore. It just has this very strange, dreamlike, surreal quality to it and makes you question time and like life and death. And it's my understanding that is the entire point, that it is exploring Mexican traditions around the afterlife. But it also just seems to be really messing with the perception of time and reality. Just so fascinating. It's just a guy wandering around a ghost town trying to figure out what's real and what's not. So short, so packed with so much, not necessarily happening, but just so much imagery, so much double meaning, multi-layered meaning that I'm definitely not picking up on. Yeah, I might just, once I finish this, I might just go straight back to the beginning and read it again because it's doing so much. I really never read anything like it. It's so fascinating. So, having a good time so far. Editing Emma here. I could have sworn I had filmed a video of my reaction to actually finishing Pedro Paramo, but I cannot find it anywhere. It doesn't exist. It's not on my phone, it's not on my computer, it's not anywhere. So now it's weeks later, because that's how I've been keeping up on all of my projects. And I'm just going to tell you what I remember from the end. I didn't end up rereading it because I have just put so many books on my plate for finishing all of these projects I want to do. It's fun. I enjoy having all these projects that I am completing, but that did mean that I didn't reread Pedro Paramo. But I'm still thinking about how I think I would like to own this book because it was just so strange. I feel like I could get something new out of it every time I read it. Dark and eerie. Like there's parts of it that are just kind of spooky because everyone who speaks in it may or may not be dead. And you're just figuring all of that out. And then also just not figuring it out. All of it's very ambiguous. But then there's like legitimately dark, difficult events that are discussed. And I just think it's such an interesting way of exploring the boundary between life and death, the past, present, future, and how those things connect us. And I think that the tone of ambiguity and strangeness really matches how ambiguous and strange those topics are. And also the writing was just beautiful and atmospheric, and I can still remember like the way that I felt when I was reading certain passages. I think that if this book was any longer, it wouldn't have worked. Because there's not really a plot. It's just Pedro was not. I think Pedro is his father. It's the main character wandering around talking to people who might be ghosts. And so you're just in it with him, absorbing all these ideas and these feelings, and then it concludes. And I don't think that could have been sustained over a longer period of pages. So I think it's the perfect length. It's very short, but just satisfying and delicious, very odd. I recommend it if you're okay with just a book that's lots of ideas and interesting descriptions and like very open-ended and leaves you thinking about a lot of things. You have to be okay with not having a story. This is all thoughts, no plot, once again. But if that seems like something you'd be down for, then I recommend this one. I'm still thinking about it weeks later as I'm editing this video. So I read all of Beka Lamb. Sorry, I didn't do a halfway update because it's really short, and also because the first half was boring. I give this one 3 stars because the first half was so boring. I was thinking of it reading it like a 1 or a 2, but then the second half actually had a lot to say and was really interesting. It is about a 14-year-old girl in 1940s, I think, Belize, and she is of Afro-Caribbean descent, and it's all about her and her best friend. Her best friend is very poor. Beka's family seems okay, like maybe middle class for their demographic, and it just is bringing up it's a very pivotal time in Belize history where it's a lot of modernization, modern ideas, lots of ideas in here about like old traditions versus new innovations, new belief, lots of ideas about opportunities for young women, education, career prospect, things like that. A lot of political commentary about the time. The grandma is extremely politically involved, which is really kind of fun. I learned a lot about Belize agriculture and infrastructure. They have mahogany and cashews and mangoes, and I learned that Belize has a lot of people from the Caribbean living there. It seems to be this perspective was very like island culture. Like it talked a lot about people from the Caribbean. I think Beka's family is Creole, but they talked a lot about the Caribbean people. Yeah, the second half was where all of like the really good themes and messaging came together. And I thought the writing was pretty decent, but that it got better as it went along. Like the first half, I wasn't a fan of the writing, but then the second half seemed to get better. Yeah, 3 stars. I'm a little over halfway through The President, and I think I described this as a satire, It's not. I saw on the back, it's actually, it employs literary devices such as satire to convey the government's transgressions and uses surrealistic dream sequences to demonstrate the police state's impact on the individual psyche. So it has satirical elements. It is not a satire, which means that some of it is a little darkly funny, and some of it is definitely exaggerated in order to emphasize the absurdity of fascism and authoritarianism and dictatorship and all those other delicious things. But it is itself is not a satire. It is not funny. There's a lot of horrific torture of civilians in order to get forced confessions for crimes they did not commit. That's been a rough time. But those are things that actually happened. So something to consider. But what has really hit me is that the writing is incredible. Absolutely. And so unique. Let me find a passage that I really, really liked. Here it is. So this is when the daughter of a politician who has been arrested is trying to be taken in by her aunt and uncle, and they won't let her in. During this brief instant, the world of the house and the world of the street separated from one another by the door, brushed against one another like two extinct stars. A house makes it possible to eat one's bread in privacy, and bread eaten in privacy is sweet. It teaches wisdom. A house enjoys the safety of permanence and of being socially approved. It is like a family portrait with the father wearing his best tie, the mother wearing her finest jewels, and the children's hair brushed with the real eau de cologne. The street, on the other hand, is an unstable, dangerous, adventurous world, false as a looking-glass, the public laundry of all the dirty linen in the neighborhood. How often she had played in that doorway as a child. How many times, too, while her father and Uncle Juan talked business just before they parted, she had amused herself, staring up at the eaves of the neighboring houses, silhouetted like scaly backbones against the blue sky. So, just that. Her language that I just really love, brushed against one another like two extinct stars. Bread eaten in privacy is sweet, it teaches one wisdom. The public laundry of all the dirty linen in the neighborhood. Scaly backbones against the blue sky. It's just like really unique imagery that I really enjoy, and there's a lot of that sort of thing in here where it's just language that I've never seen before, that just metaphors that are so electric. Yeah, the writing, absolutely gorgeous. Definitely Nobel Prize material right here. But the subject matter, really horrifying stuff. That's what I'm getting so far. We'll see how it ends. It's just a lot of suffering so far. A lot of suffering for the sake of politics, for the sake of the personal politics of authoritarian leaders. It's a lot right now. Hello, I finished The President. It was sad, it was depressing, it was discouraging. It had some of the best language I've ever read, like really just phenomenal prose, and everything ended badly. Everything was bad. I think that if you're interested in totalitarian governments, and there are people like me, I'm interested in totalitarian governments, that's not too niche of an interest. If you're interested in Latin America, in totalitarian governments, in unstable societies, in any of the things that I've been describing, I do think that you'd like this because it's very well written. I will say it was not 100% for me. I'm giving it 4 stars. I feel like in my heart it's 3 stars just because I really had to drag myself through it. But just like objectively, it was just so beautifully written and so had such a unique voice. Really drove home the human impact of dictatorship. I just think that as a book, objectively, it's great. Probably even 5 stars. I would say objectively, it's 5 stars. It's gorgeous, it's thorough, it's human, it's disturbing. But I didn't have a great time reading it. I just didn't feel inspired by it. It was hard to pick up, so I'd give it a 3. So like 4 overall, right? Right? Does that seem fair? So overall, I had such a good time reading these Central American books. Pedro Paramo was such a trip. Pedro Paramo is the kind of thing that I am going to have my eye out for to own because it's so short and so fun and weird and such a strange little read that I really do genuinely want to read it again. Beka Lamb makes me want to learn more about Belize and about the Caribbean, even though I didn't find the book particularly compelling. I'm glad it exists. I'm glad it's out there. And then The President, I can totally understand why Miguel Angel Asturias won Nobel Prize for Literature because he is such a wordsmith, really understands. Oh, well, and also with how gorgeous this prose has been comes across. Obviously, the translator has done a fantastic job. This was translated by Francis Partridge. Great job, Francis. I totally had a great time with this translation, had a great experience. 3 very different stories: surreal, ghost story, and coming of age and political drama. Very, very different. But I do feel like with Pedro Paramo and the president especially, just very different prose than what I am used to, which was very exciting and beautiful. Beka Lamb did kind of remind me of other kind of books about young girls learning that the world sucks. That life is hard. But I think that the author, Z. Edgel, possibly wrote it while in the United States. I think that she has been influenced by the United States. I don't have that with me right now. I believe she has a lot more American/European influence on her literature. So I'm excited to read more Latin American lit. This will not be my only video about Latin America. I highly recommend, if you like something short and weird, then I really think that you'll like Pedro Paramo. You should give it a shot. And if you like something heavy and political, then you should read The President. Beka Lamb, yeah, didn't really compel me, and also it's really hard to find. So I'd say not something that I would widely recommend. So thank you so much for watching. I hope that you feel inspired to read more Latin American authors as well. And I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.